So Chris and I are children of the 80s. That's the whole basis for this damn podcast. And if the 80s were anything on film, they were the golden age of action flicks. There were a million action heroes, and I tried to see every single one of them on the big screen. Enjoy this episode about action movies on Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek.
Your two favorite action movie stars. Action movies, man. This
Yeah.
is I mean, there's still a thing now, obviously, but it feels like I mean, even back in the 80s, there was a formula to all these. We're going to talk about, the buddy, especially the cop buddy flick. I don't want to ruin my draft, but I mean, you had Schwarzenegger movies, which were just awesome and gory and like, showing his muscles. And so being categorized as an action star was a big deal back then. That was a way to a lot of money. And you didn't even really have to speak good English. I mean, if you look at Jean-Claude Van
Oh,
Damme.
Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sylvester
George.
Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger. The only guy who could speak English was Bruce Willis, I think.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I'm not sure I agree that they pre-existed the 80s. Like that's when it all happened, right? I'm sure there was, the Dirty Harry movies were in the
That's true.
70s, but they weren't really action in the same way. Those were like crime thrillers, and there was shooting of guns, but there wasn't swinging around, running around in collapsing buildings and explosions everywhere. It really did seem to start in the early 80s, and man, I loved that shit. I couldn't get enough action flicks.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, there were movies. I did some research because we have a draft. Like Steve McQueen was a action hero-ish type of guy. Like movies like Bullet from '68.
Right.
And then what was the one? Shoot, Gene Hackman was in it. I think it was a mob movie. But I mean, I'll look it up. I didn't include it on my list,
Well, there's
but I
like the
think
French Connection, and
yeah,
there
the French
was
Connection. That's
and the
exactly what it was.
package. They were like proto action movies, but I mean, Gene Hackman wasn't doing a whole lot of 5-minute fight scenes or anything like that.
No, and it was a different thing. Like these guys, they weren't invincible. They could, of course, get injured, but you were never really worried that they were in danger. I mean, they were going to kick somebody's ass, and like you said, I guess the roots of these movies existed back into the 60s and the 70s, but by the 80s, they took it to a whole nother level. And I would argue, and I guess this is what I was saying, it started to become formulaic because they were such a big success that there were just riffs on those buddy movies and everything else. Everyone wanted to find the next Schwarzenegger to capture the screen, which included going to like WWE or WWF. Rowdy Roddy Piper was in a movie. I mean, you get a lot of those guys with a lot of muscles, but very few of them stuck, like Schwarzenegger and even Van Damme.
Yeah, that's just it. I think all the stuff that we see as cliche now, most of the cliches started in the 80s.
Yep.
The buddy movie really was a 1980s thing, I think. I was trying to I know that the Lethal Weapon movies were, in the 80s, of course, and those are, the almost the beginning, I think, of, well, that's not fair, I guess, because the first Lethal Weapon came out in 1987. But do you remember what was the name of the movie with Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal?
Oh yeah,
What the hell was that?
yeah. That one came up on my list. I loved the movie when it came out.
I
I
love
just
that. That was called Running Scared, and that was in
Yeah, Running Scared.
1986. So it really seems like mid 80s is this explosion of those, of all those movies. Now, the one, I guess the real precursor might have been like Mad Max. I think the original Mad Max movies with Mel Gibson. I think Mad Max itself was probably a 1970s movie, but the sequels were all in the 80s, and everybody just kept amping everything up, and they would take those formulas and just twist them around a little bit, and you'd end up with, Die Hard on a boat, Die Hard on a plane, and they would take the formulas that worked, they'd find either the same or a different big action star, and then they just shoot another one, and it'd be an hour 50. And man, I would pay to see every one of them. It seemed like.
For the first time, Google failed me. I did a quick search, first Buddy movie, and it was Air Bud, Buddy the dog.
Like Abbott and Costello.
Yeah. But no, you were right. I thought you were wrong, but the first Mad Max was 1979. So good
Yeah,
call.
so just before it. So really, it really was the 80s, right? That's when somebody in Hollywood realized that they could sell a lot of tickets if they put one or two guys out there to fight impossible odds and get caught in crazy action sequences. And like you said, I think Bullet, I think Steve McQueen had like the car chase scenes. Wasn't that kind of what he was famous for? And those were all, I think, a precursor. But there was nothing like, by late 80s, early 90s, man, the action was just completely insane.
I don't want to ruin your draft, but Google finally paid off. The movie that is credited as being the first buddy or cop buddy movie was 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy
Oh,
and Nick
yes.
Nolte.
Yeah, and first of all, that's probably one of my all-time top 10 favorite movies.
Yep.
However, probably not an action movie, right? Definitely a
Yep.
buddy cop movie. And
Yep.
that's how I feel about Running Scared too. It's not like they weren't doing the stuff that Bruce Willis was doing in Die Hard. But it was just finding two really good actors with chemistry and putting them in a dangerous situation. So
Yep.
we actually, to me, that may be a whole nother episode because buddy movies, I think, is different than action. But somebody down the line, particularly for Lethal Weapon, said, "Hey, why don't we smash these two things together?" It's like the Reese's cup of filmmaking.
Which Reese's Cup though? Because there's like 1,000 fucking Reese's Cups.
Yeah, there's now
Pe-
peanut butter and jelly, by the way,
Peanut
which
butter
is
and jelly. That's what I was
fucking
going.
gross.
That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah, it's
It's like
awful.
we'll shove caramel in there. We'll shove
Yeah.
chocolate chips probably. We're out of ideas. Let's go with peanut butter and jelly. It works as a sandwich. It'll work as a peanut butter cup.
Right.
All right. So we've set the context. I think we should do our draft. Because then we can start talking about movies. I'm afraid that some of these I don't want to mention because you and I keep this
Yep.
from each other. I have a list of 13 movies, so I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna get my five. Do you got a
All right.
coin?
I got a coin. I have a question. I have a
Yep.
procedural question. My thought in putting this together, and this may kind of ruin your draft because it kind of ruined mine. I'm trying to decide whether we should include movies that are part of a franchise.
Mm.
So, and here's the problem with that, because in the 80s, and probably in general, you don't know if it's a franchise until you have the first movie. You know what I mean? So I have a list too. I've got a really long list, but a bunch of them are franchise movies. And I couldn't decide. I was trying to narrow things down. I was like, well, if you take out the franchise movies, it makes it a lot easier. But it also takes out some really, really classic uh, action flicks. So I'm going to leave it up to you because I can actually do it either way.
Why don't we say this? Why don't we merge it? You can do no more than one franchise movie.
Done. All right. Deal.
Yeah, I mean that way we get because there's some on my list that I just want to pick, and
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring it up because I wasn't sure either, and my original list had at least three or four, that and again, the first movie of those franchises weren't necessarily written to be part of the beginning of a franchise. It just turned out they made a bunch of money. They're like, well, fuck, let's keep doing this.
well, when
Because
we say franchise, like if they made a lame ass sequel, I'm not counting that as a franchise.
Okay, all right. I think we'll wing this.
Yeah, we'll do it.
That was my thought process as I was going through. So I have a couple movies that I may choose because I decided not to go with something that ended
Okay.
up being like six or eight. Like for example, there's a oh shit, what's the car one?
Oh, Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious. I excluded that, even though I like a couple of those, but that one was clearly created to. Well, no, even that one, the first movie, I don't think they thought they were going to do anything. And in fact, it turned out not to be that good, I think. But clearly, I spent way too much time thinking about this.
But you know what? We'll wing it. We won't go with one. I mean, we'll try to avoid, but there's a couple in here that I'm choosing like if, for example, The Matrix. I hate to throw it out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm not sure they intended because the sequels were done like long time afterwards.
yeah,
And it seems
yeah.
like The
And
Matrix stood alone as a movie for a while until they created
agreed,
it.
agreed. And that was one I was having trouble with because it's on my list as well. But I was like, oh fuck, but they made two more, actually three more, because eventually they made one like 20 years later.
I know.
Uh, which was okay, but for a completely different reason, not really as an action flick. All right, I have flipped a coin. You're going to call it
Tails.
heads. It is. I get the
All right. Do you
first
want the
pick.
first pick or do you want the next two?
I am going to let me look at my list. All right, I am going to take the first pick,
All right, go.
and my first pick is is not from the 80s, weirdly, but is definitely owes everything to the 80s. I'm picking The Rock from 1996,
Mm.
directed by Michael Bay, famous action movie director, reviled by some people. But that's the movie with Nick Cage and Sean Connery. Uh, it also had Spoonie in it. Do you remember Spoonie from St. Louis? His
No.
brother used to work at, or that wasn't didn't work, but was a regular at Schmeezing's Millbrook where we tended bar.
Oh
And
yeah.
Spoonie was an actor who never made it big, but was he did a lot of supporting roles in the '90s, and I always thought he was like best friends with John Cusack,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. No, I do.
and
Yep.
so I always whenever I see him in a movie, I'm like, hey, that's Spoonie. Spoonie doesn't know who the fuck I am, but I'm always I met him like twice, so I feel like we're really close friends. Anyway, I'm picking The Rock. I think it's a slightly controversial because, first of all, it's not an 80s action flick. And I thought about starting with one of those foundational movies. Also, on Rolling Stone's list of top 50 action movies, it was number 47. So obviously, Rolling Stone doesn't agree with me, but that's where I'm going.
All right. I think I'm in good shape. I'm violating the rule right off the bat. My favorite my favorite movie for how stylized it is and all the blowing up and the shooting and everything. I'm going with 1995's Desperado with Antonio
Ooh,
Banderas and Salma Hayek.
yeah.
I love that movie. Even like the scene where they're blowing the town up and they're walking away looking all sexy and stuff, and everything's blowing up behind them. Salma Hayek's awesome in that movie. And some people don't like Banderas. He was great in that movie. He was
Yeah, that was
awesome.
perfect film for him, right? I mean, sometimes he's early in his career anyway. Sometimes he's hard to understand when he spoke
Yep.
English. Unfortunately, I mean,
Yep.
he's a Mexican actor, but it didn't. You had no problem with that in this particular movie because of the setting. And yeah, those two are like the sexiest couple you've ever seen in your life.
But
That's a great movie.
I think it qualifies as action because it's there's not much of a plot. It's just killing people and blowing shit up.
Yeah, and having your gun hidden in your guitar case is a classic as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
that scene where the guy with the guitar cases is just sweeping back and forth with his
Yeah.
guns. That's
That's a
awesome.
good choice. That was not on my list. I commend you though, because I probably should have put it on my list.
And that's Robert Rodriguez, who also did Spy Kids, just so you know.
Oh, that's right.
Um,
Yeah,
all right, number two. I don't think this became a franchise, but I don't care if it did or not. 1987 Predator with Schwarzenegger
on my list. That's a good one.
and Carl
That
Weathers too, by the way. So,
yes, yes. That I personally think that's a classic, and that was near the top of my list as well. That's a really good, and that's 1987, right? That's
yep,
squarely in
right there.
the heyday of action. That wasn't Schwarzenegger's first, was it? I don't think it was.
No,
I don't
it was
remember.
not, but I can't remember which one was. I looked it up, but I actually thought of this one last night, half asleep. I was like, oh shit, I forgot about Predator because, I mean, what's better action than fighting an alien that came down to Earth with,
Oh, for sure, for sure. He
because that
did.
happens all the time.
I think Commando was before Predator, and I think there was another one
Oh
before
yeah,
that.
I think you're right. Yep.
Because again, I would watch every Schwarzenegger action movie. And he's a guy you talk about not being able to understand him speaking English, but it did not matter, that's for sure. All
All
right,
right, you're up for two.
all right, I'm up for two. I'm going to use these two for the classics, and I got lucky because both of my foundational Shawshank movies, the ones that I still will watch whenever they're on TV, and I think they both hold up. But my number, what number is this?
You're
Four?
number two and three.
Or no,
You only
you were
took your
number
first
two.
pick. Oh yeah,
Right.
this is four total. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the fourth pick of the draft, I'm going with Die Hard.
Yep.
Bruce Willis is the classic, one of the classic action heroes, certainly. Die Hard came out in 1988. That's the one that everybody has copied one way or another, probably ever since. I don't know that you see any action movie that doesn't owe at least some debt to Die Hard. Uh, it it is Rolling Stone's number two, and I agree completely. And I do think it really does hold up. I mean, there's no cell phone. Well, no, yeah, I don't think there's any cell phones. Although he does talk to the cop on the ground on the phone, but I feel like it's a car phone as opposed to,
Yeah, it's a car
nobody
phone. Like he's talking on his car phone, and
on his radio, right? Like
yeah,
that. But it's perfectly cast. Bruce Willis, up till that point, nobody really would have thought of him as an action star because he wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger. He wasn't huge. He didn't look like a guy that could, pick up a car or anything, but he was so good and such a great wisecracking guy. I love that movie, and as I said, I can watch it all the way through, and with the exception of the final death scene of the main villain Snape, I can't think of the actor now.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
the special effects for him falling off the building are awful,
yeah,
but the rest of the movie is so damn good it doesn't make any difference. So Die Hard
agree.
is my second pick, but the fourth pick in the draft. And similarly, and with a little bit more problem from my perspective, I am picking Lethal Weapon, the first Lethal Weapon. So I've thrown the franchise thing out the window, obviously. Both those movies were definitely movies that I don't necessarily think they thought there would be sequels, but they just made a buttload of money and decided to keep going forever. Particularly the Die Hard movies seem to have just gone on and on and on. But Lethal Weapon was came out in 1987, directed by Richard Donner, starring Mel Gibson. That's my problematic part because I think he's a raging asshole, and it's hard to put him on the top 10 of any list. But it also has Danny Glover, who's one of my favorite actors,
Yeah.
and I just can't not put that movie on an action movie draft. So number four is Die Hard. Number five is Lethal Weapon.
All right. You took two of my choices, but I have 13 total, so I should be fine. All right, I'm gonna go. You talk about Mel Gibson being an asshole. Someone who I've come to appreciate as an actor is Keanu Reeves. I know it's a franchise, and I think they just
Yeah,
came out four or five, but I'm going to John Wick. Um,
yeah.
I already mentioned The Matrix. I love the ending of The Matrix. But overall, Wick is just such a violent, action-packed movie, as are all of them, and they almost seem to up the violence in each one. But that was such a great introduction to Keanu Reeves. Not introduction, but that's when I always just felt like I couldn't get him out of my head. The Parenthood movie, where he was the dumbass kid. And he
Right.
seems to have a
Or
fairly narrow range. We're just two cool dudes sitting on, like, that was the
it's
bus
like
one.
Bill and Ted too, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, Bill and Ted, and then even like on the one where the bus was rigged to blow up if it went below a certain speed,
oh, Speed,
and
right? Yeah.
yeah, speed, yeah, of course, there you go. And there's a scene where I was just like, oh, such a Keanu Reeves scene where he's like, we're just two cool dudes sitting on a bus or whatever, trying to talk the guy down. But John Wick, he's a total badass in that movie, and it's a great franchise, and I'm going with it.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's his acting is fairly limited. I think he it sounds like he's a better person than he's an
yes,
actor
yes,
from everything.
that's what I heard.
But what I thought was amazing was the universe they created
Yeah.
around that, and a lot of that comes through the sequels. But still, even at the beginning, you realize there's this the concept is there's this whole world of assassins and killers that's just under the surface, and they're all around us, and we don't know anything about it. And that was kind of setting aside acting and everything else, you combine that with the action part of it, and it's just like, there's danger around, literally around every corner. And I love that movie too. And it is on my list, my potential draft list.
Okay. My fourth choice. I was saving this for the fifth one. I don't think you'll take it, but I'm going to take it. It's a 2021 movie. I saw it on an airplane, and I've watched it now 3 or 4 times since. Cop Shop, starring
Oh,
Gerard Butler and Alexis Louder. And I chose it because Alexis Louder is a female cop in that movie. She is just a total badass. I don't, have you seen that movie?
no, no,
You
I'm
got
not
to
even aware of it at all.
you got to watch it. It's
Yeah.
I totally, and I didn't think you'd take it. I should have saved it for my fifth pick. But basically, it's all centered around a prison, or a holding cell, and there's an assassin who's coming to take out someone in there, and there's a lot of violence and some cool stuff. And like I said, Gerard Butler's great in it, and this Alexis Louder, who I've not seen in any other movies, is definitely one to watch. She has some great scenes.
I was looking it up, and it looks like it streams. Actually, it looks like it may be streaming on Peacock right now.
There you go.
It also streams on Fubo. I can't remember which one Fubo is. I think that's the one with commercials.
Yeah,
Uh, but
I think that's an
anyway,
Amazon one.
and you can find it on Amazon, etc. But it looks like it's streaming on Peacock. If you have Peacock, I'm going to look for it right away because I hadn't even heard of
Put it to the top of your list, unlike what I do to your choices, and watch it,
it.
and then we'll talk about it on the next show.
All right,
You got two more.
I got two more. I have 8 and 9, correct?
Yep,
So, I'm sorry, I'm pausing here, trying to
you're
keep
good.
track of our stuff. All right, so this becomes, all right, so this is where it gets really hard for me because I have 10 movies left on my list, and I don't know which two to take out of these 10. So I I'm going to exclude a movie because it's more of a martial arts movie, and I think that might be a different subgenre, and it allows me, at least in my head, it allows me not to pick it, even though I love it, and I will probably mention it in a little bit. I am going to go with the movie Edge of Tomorrow, which has also been titled Live, Die, Repeat. You see it, it streams all the time on on wherever it's hell, it plays on regular TV at this point all the time. It's a Tom Cruise movie. That feels like our draft should have at least one Tom Cruise film. I wasn't going to pick any Mission Impossibles or that kind of stuff, but Edge of Tomorrow is a fantastic science fiction movie, and it has Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt, and there is tons of action in it, and they're flying helicopters and fighting aliens. It's kind of like the Predator approach to things. When I looked it up on the Rolling Stone list, it came in at 28. I was a little surprised it was as low as that. But that's going to be my pick for the eighth pick of the draft. And now it becomes really, really hard. God, I have three, but any one of them I could take. But I'm going to go with. All right, I'm going to cheat because
Cheater.
this is what Rolling Stone did. I'm going to go with Kill Bill. I love the Kill Bill movies. If I had to pick between one and two, I would pick two. But frankly, the best action scene is in one. And Rolling Stone listed those two movies together as number 23. So that's why I'm going to take both of them. But it's a Quentin Tarantino movie. Came out, I think they came out back to back in 2003 and 2004. Stars Uma Thurman, and the fight scenes, the action scenes are phenomenal. She has a fight scene in the first movie where she fights the Crazy 88, which is like the ninja army of the Yakuza, and it is phenomenal. It's so bloody at one point they go to black and white in the American version because there's so much blood and gore. It's also a very cool story, which apparently Tarantino wrote with Uma Thurman. And I think that Kill Bill Volume 2, it has better, like the story beats are better, and the way it comes to a conclusion is more interesting to me. But I'm picking them both together because if Rolling Stone did it, I feel like I can do it too.
Yep. Good choice. And all your talk about Uma Thurman segues perfectly into my last one. I went with Atomic Blonde from
Ah,
2017.
that was one of the those that was on my list. That was the one I was fighting with about which one to pick for my final pick. I love that movie.
Yeah, that's funny that that was the choice because we have so many. We both
Yeah.
must have like 10 or more choices. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
I debated Casino Royale because I love the sort of reboot.
Hmm.
But it's a Bond movie. I mean, it's definitely
Yeah.
a action, but no, Tommy Blonde, it just kicks ass, and Charlize Theron is awesome. James McAvoy's in it too. John Goodman, great movie, and I ended up with two female badasses in my list,
Yeah.
so I'm proud of that.
I that's a great choice. As I said, that was I had I almost went very old school and went back to Raiders of the Lost Ark, which came out in 1981 and
Yep.
is one of those beginning action movies. But it was also really a throwback to like those old serials back in the whatever the 30s or 40s when they would play it, at the movie theater. So I was, I had to figure out ways to justify lopping movies off of my list. But neither of us picked a Bourne movie, the Matt Damon
No.
franchise,
Yep.
and again, those are awesome action. Uh, I love Snowpiercer, which came out in 2013. That's a sci-fi action movie. But this is a pretty good list, I got to say, because it spans the decades, and that would be a pretty cool film festival. I think if we just took the 10 movies we just picked.
I think so too. That'd be great. And I did have that was the two I was choosing between. I sort of thought about the Casino Royale, but Born Identity. If you look at my
Yeah,
list, Born Identity and Atomic Blonde are right next to each other, and I have arrows pointing to both for my last pick.
yeah, that's no. I think that Atomic Blonde is a great choice, not only because it's a great movie, but also because I think it's kind of underseen. I think it's a little
Yep.
underrated, and I've watched it two or three times because I just think it's fantastic, and I'm in love with Charlize Theron, so that may have colored it a little bit, but still.
Yeah. And she's something to love in that movie in
Yeah.
many ways.
Yes. Yes, for sure.
All right.
Cool.
So season 8 is well underway. As a reminder to our listeners, this is the season of the Loft of Wisdom, where Tom and I will virtually add quotes, memorable quotes, whether it be from a song, a movie, or just something we heard on the streets, to our new and improved, well, it can't be improved because the original loft was awesome, but our virtual loft of wisdom. So, Tom, do you want to start us off with your quote of the week?
I do, and I went with the classic action movie quote. It is so cliche now that it sounds dumb to say it, or it's just a punchline to a joke. But at the time, first of all, it was hilarious. But I'm quoting Roger Murtaugh from the original Lethal Weapon movie in 1987. I'm too old for this shit. Like, I mean, everybody says it now, and everybody now they say it ironically. But it was so funny at the time. It just because his character was just it wasn't a character you'd really seen all that often up till that point. Now, the cop was on the verge of retirement. It is, as I said, definitely a cliche. But I look at that quote as inspiration for me at my age because Danny Glover's character said that in the first Lethal Weapon in 1987, and then he came back three more times, three more movies after Lethal Weapon. And Murtaugh didn't retire, or if he did, he still got dragged back into all the action. So sometimes I'm too old for this shit. Just that quote just gets me out of the bed. It gets me out of bed in the morning.
That's a great one and perfect for this one. Mine is a riff on one of our favorite quotes of all time. It is a song lyrics. Highlander did not get chosen in this draft, but it could have. And I believe it's from this movie. It's better to burn out than fade away, which is also from another song. But I went with the Ha Ha Tonka lyric from their song Saint Nick on the Fourth in a Fervor, which is one of my favorite song titles. It's let's get one thing straight from the get-go. This glimpse of brilliance is much better than your long look at mediocrity, which to me is the same thought, just phrased in a different,
Right.
much more melodic way. It's a tribute to Highlander, which could have easily been one of our 10 best action movies ever. That one probably doesn't hold up as well. It's a little rough around the edges, but the idea behind it is great.
Cool. So those are our first two quotes for the Loft of Wisdom for season 8. We're going to do this every episode, and we're going to scour pop culture for the best quotes.
And then we're going to segue immediately into our post facto because you're wrong. We did quotes in this first episode. This is our third episode.
Oh my God.
I
That's what happens when you're recording all over the place and out of
know it.
order.
I know.
Holy
We
shit.
could make this the first episode just so you're right.
Well, like you said, that seems like a great segue into post facto.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
Post facto is the segment where we correct earlier mistakes or provide information we left out in earlier episodes. Or in the case of Chris, we find out how reading has been going.
My reading's been going great, actually. I finished the Buffalo Hunter book, which is to catch our listeners up. It's a movie about a Native American vampire back in the early 1900s, and it's an interesting way to explore the troubled relationship between Native Americans and white settlers. And at this point, it was way past the settlement stage, but it was when we were killing buffalo at an alarming rate. And the one of the core parts of the book is that the vampire is trying to protect the buffalo, and is killing as many buffalo hunters as he can. It zigs and zags through a number of things. I love the overall premise of the book. It quickly jumps forward because what happens is they found these diaries of a priest, and that's the story. And then when they jump into present day, it sort of becomes a little formulaic, like the woman who discovered it happens to be the granddaughter or something of the priest. I guess that's a minister, not a priest, because he wouldn't have kids. But she encounters the vampire in the future, and it just seems sort of a scene that they didn't need at the end. I think it could have ended
Yeah.
earlier, but otherwise, I like the book. Far more important is I am plowing through Cryptonomicon. As of this morning, I am 764 pages in, which represents all of 73%. So I still have a good chunk to go. My last update, I would think I was at just over 50%. So I've made some progress here, people. I'm hoping within the next two episodes, because I'm flying at it now. So I'm gonna knock this thing out. I love shoot, I'm gonna forget his name.
Stevenson? Is
Yeah,
it
Stevenson, Neil Stevenson. I've read three or four of his books. It turns out he likes I mean, a lot of the characters are similar in motivation, at least. I mean, he does a lot of speculative fiction, taking historical figures and changing the history around them. But some of the side characters become much more central to the story, and their motivations, especially subversiveness and otherwise, you see some similarities in them. And now I'm into those characters, and I'm going to finish that damn book before the end of season 8.
Yeah, I just recently downloaded a digital edition of one of Neil Stephenson's books, and then the title escapes me. But I'm a little intimidated because I'm not ready to jump into a 1,500 page book right now. So it's going to stay off my list. But I do think he's a great writer, and I am interested to hear what you say at the very end of Cryptonomicon. Because if it's kind of meh at the end, I'm not going to read that book. I'm not going to invest that time.
There was one I read. I thought I told you about it. It was a little bit more around changes in climate and the impact on
Yeah.
a future world, and that one ended great. I was excited
Yeah.
about the ending of that one, so we'll see.
Well, that I do want to just bow my head for a moment because that's the end of Buffalo Hunter report. We won't have any more
Yeah.
reports on that. I do have a post facto, however, in our interview of Matthew Grimm. I think actually it was the Loft of Wisdom part. It was the quote. I discussed the fact that there was a great Matthew Grimm quote. It was from Substack, and I said during the episode, I said before the episode ended, I was going to let the listeners know who wrote the article that was that interview of Matthew Grimm, and then I completely ignored it and didn't do it. I don't have the author's name, but he has a Substack account, and the article or the Substack account is
Oh, yeah.
the Extra Board. He doesn't list his name as the author, so if you go to Substack, look for the Extra Board. I think all of his articles are free, and he does a really nice interview with Matthew Grimm as well. And it kind of covers some stuff we didn't cover, so I think it's a nice supplement to what we already did, or actually, technically, I think we're a supplement to what he did because we came after. But anyway, I said I was going to give that information. I forgot to do it. So look for the Extra Board on Substack if you want to read more about Matthew.
And we'll put a link to that on our website when we put the as mentioned stuff. I think that's something we can
Yeah, that'd be great.
reference out. All right, what's that take us to, man?
Time for staff picks.
Just around the corner from you.
Staff picks are our opportunity to make recommendations of something new or coming out soon. And I have a perfect action movie staff pick for this week. If our production schedule holds, which is a big if, last week on July 2nd, 2025, on Netflix, The Old Guard 2 dropped. So I believe I recommended the original film, The Old Guard, months and months ago. It is a great action franchise, I guess, at this point that involves people that are immortal that go around the world and try to do good. And the team is led by the oldest of the immortals, and she is played by Charlize Theron. And at the time of recording, I have not seen it because it's coming out in a couple weeks, but I can't wait to watch the sequel because they definitely left it on a cliffhanger. It was set up to be a franchise for sure, and she's in kick-ass mode, and the other actors who are not actors I know or it's recognized from other stuff. It's just a cool kind of superhero team kind of thing. They can all if they get shot, they revive. But the first movie had lots of twists and turns and was really a lot of fun to watch. So my staff pick is The Old Guard 2, streaming on Netflix. Should be out by the time you hear this episode.
I didn't go action movie although I could go violent and resurface that I Prevail song, Violent Nature, but I won't make you listen to that. I went with a band that I went to a festival last week. This is back in end of May for my birthday, and it's more of a bluegrassy type of festival. Trampled by Turtles were the headlining act. They were great. But there's another festival coming up in October led by the band Yarn, and their co-headliners is a band called Susto, Susto. I think I've put one of their songs on a playlist, Friends, Lovers, Ex-Lovers, or whatever, which is a fantastic song. But I think they do it just to, hopefully it's for creative. They have a spin-off called Susto String Band, and that's going to be who's co-headlining this festival in October. They just came out with their first record as Susto String Band. It's just called Volume 1. All the songs are now released. They do it in collaboration with a smaller band called Holler Choir, which I love the name of. They're out of Asheville, North Carolina, which is a pretty hot music scene these days. I would definitely check it out. They have an acoustic or string band version of Friends, Lovers, Ex-Lovers, or whatever. The opening track, Mount Caroline, is really good. So 9 new songs from Susto, who are out of Charleston. Really good introduction to their sound and this spin-off called Susto String Band.
Cool. I have not listened to that, and I'm going to soon. Time for playlist picks, man. Let's pick some songs for the third song in season 8 playlist.
Let's
What's
do that.
up?
But mine's I went with the theme and I think I nailed it, except for the fact that the song isn't really good.
So almost nailed it.
Well, it's a perfect choice for me for a variety of reasons. It's the song is Lethal Weapon by the band Honeymoon Suite. It is from the soundtrack to the movie Lethal Weapon. I loved Honeymoon Suite back in the 80s.
I remember.
I went to a concert, had a t-shirt that somebody fucking stole. I'm still pissed about that. But I mean, that was the thing back then too, is with any movie, but these action movies, these multi-million dollar, box office hits, you wanted to have a song on the soundtrack because that
Right.
introduced people to your music. And if you had the lead song, the title track to Lethal Weapon, you're probably doing pretty well. So that shows that other people appreciated Honeymoon Suite. They probably didn't as much after this song because I would argue it's not their best song in the world. But it is the soundtrack to one of the great action movies of all time. So Lethal Weapon by Honeymoon Suite.
Awesome. Awesome. I don't remember that song at all. I can't
Oh.
place it in my head. I'm gonna have to listen to it, good or bad. I'm gonna have to listen to it just to
As
refresh my.
soon as those opening notes start up and it's like it's got a downbeat start to such a big ass movie or action movie.
That's
But
funny.
it's also, I mean, they obviously knew about the theme of the movie because it's all about love is a lethal weapon. And if you recall, that was the big thing is that Mel Gibson's character was uh had sort of a death wish because he lost the love of
Yeah.
his life. So
Yeah, yeah, that's it's funny when you think about all of those action movies. The first ones all had a story and there was like backstory and there was drama. And then by the time you get to the third movie in the franchise, it's just like, all right, who's the bad guy and what are they fucking up right now? Because we got to go get him. Like they kind of forget about everything else, I think, especially the lethal weapons and the diehards. They just get more and more outlandish as they go along.
But they also went through a phase where the lead character always seemed to lose their love. Like they were killed. Like there was a point where like if they're happy, not always, but there's like even in Born Identity in the second one, they kill the love
Yeah,
of his life
his
in the
girlfriend.
opening scene, his girlfriend,
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like a Disney movie. You know, you got to kill something in the opening act.
yeah.
In Disney, it's just, in Disney animated, it's just, somebody's mom or dad. Sometimes both.
Yeah. Bambi.
All right. My playlist pick, speaking of kind of low tempo or slow tempo songs, is a song called The Last Pale Light in the West. This was just a way for me to sneak in a Ben Nichols song. Ben Nichols is the singer-songwriter leader of the band Lucero, who we've talked about ad nauseum. But he's got a solo album out. Well, now he has a couple solo albums out because he just put out a new one. This one is came out some time ago. The album is also called The Last Pale Light in the West. It's actually an album based upon a Cormac McCarthy novel, but it also has been used in one film and one TV show. And I would argue that the TV show is kind of an action show because it's featured on an episode of The Walking Dead. Walking Dead is more kind of zombie horror than it is action, but it was a close enough tie-in for me to recommend to figure out how to get a Ben Nichols song on the playlist early. It was also in the film Midnight Special, which is not really an action film. There's some chase scenes, car chase, and some kind of real anxiety-inducing scenes. But it's more of a sci-fi thriller type of thing. What I found interesting is it was directed by Jeff Nichols, and Jeff Nichols
Hmm.
is Ben Nichols' brother. And you talk about getting your song onto an action movie or any film. I think the only films that Ben Nichols gets his music on is his brother's films. But I was interested to find out that this had made it onto The Walking Dead at some point. It must have been after I stopped watching The Walking Dead because I know I would have sat right up and went, "Hey, that's Lucero." But I'm recommending The Last Pale Light in the West primarily because it's just a great song, and Ben Nichols is a great songwriter and singer.
So you had to outdo me on the Honeymoon Suite song.
Well, it sounds like in terms of connection to the theme, I think you win. In terms of quality of music, sounds like I might have edged you out there.
just a bit, just barely. Listen to that song and you'll flash back to the 80s and then you'll be like, oh shit, Chris probably played this song 1,000 times in our corner double.
All right, I think that's fair. I think that's a good enough reason to put it on the playlist. And if nothing else, as the listener listens to the playlist, they'll listen to that song and it'll allow them to appreciate the other songs that much more.
Exactly. Yeah, but be careful. Honeymoon Suite's Canadian. Let's not make fun of them too much.
Oh, okay. Fair
Even
enough.
though we never found that elusive audience in Canada. We didn't even did a damn show about Canada and they didn't embrace us.
They didn't seem to care.
Fuck you, eh?
I think they have other things on their mind right now.
That's true. As do we.
As do we.
All right, that brings us to the end of episode 3 of season 8. Third Song In is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois.
You can email us at thirdsongin@gmail.com. You can find and listen to our podcast and all of our related playlists wherever you stream your music or your podcast: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube Music. We would ask that you download the episodes, download the playlists, follow us where you can. Please rate and review us. Give us all your goddamn stars.
And also check out our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. The staff picks that we just made will be up there. The links to our playlists. So we do a playlist for every season. We're on to our second song for the playlist because we had a two-parter to open up the season. All those will be available on our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com.
We also have a Facebook page where you can find posts with other content and links to some of our guests. We do have a weekly blog. You can find that blog on thirdsonginpodcast.com, but you can also subscribe to us on Substack, and we would urge you to do so. Please find what we write and share that as well, if you would.
Join us next week. We have a special guest, Chicago area songwriter Dan Doherty. I'm looking forward to that discussion with Dan.
You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thanks for listening.
I may be drunk all the time around that time.
I'll just call you whenever.
If the shit keeps up, I'm just gonna be
fuck, man, I don't know.
Leaving Las Vegas. That's what I'm doing.
Get me a shopping cart.
And just quotes of, maybe stuff that the dogs say.
Yeah, and if you can, criticize me.
I want it.